Well, this is gonna be very therapeutic. Sarcastic Alex is back and ready to go. America, I feel bad for you. Or do I? It's time for a reality check. Now let's get a couple of things straight because this is the internet and people are quick to judge. No, I'm not gonna be saying I don't care about Americans. Just get through the end of the video, come on. But as I do with my other reality checks, I do like to point out that sometimes the way that we think is wrong, and I'm here to make you feel bad about the way you think. So honestly, I do feel bad for what's going on in America, and as an American who's living in Korea, feeling good about what's happening in Korea, I'm actually kind of weirdly suffering from survivor's guilt. Now, it is survivor's guilt in the sense that I was saying, this is gonna get bad, and then I said, I told you so, and then it got worse than I expected. So I feel great that my friends and I'm fine in Korea, and I feel terrible about what's happening in the US. What's gonna be happening in the next couple of weeks is terrible, so I decided, hey, let me just get out some of my pent-up anger on YouTube. For you. I do feel bad for Americans, and I wanna talk about that. So, in order of how bad I feel for them, let's talk about it. First, I have to say I feel terrible for companies, corporations, and for those of you not from America, corporations are people too, at least according to Citizens United. And basically under Citizens United, money is free speech and companies are allowed to use free speech in elections more than they should. So I feel bad that corporations put in so much money to politicians that didn't exactly know what they were doing and eventually just led the economy off a cliff. Not just because of the virus, but because they were pretty much inflating the economy to a bubble stage. And I feel so terrible that they lost so much money. All their stock value went down to fire other people and then get huge corporate bonuses for their CEOs. You know, that's must make them feel bad. That's right, if you remember the 2008-2009 bailout, oh, those executives were getting some nice bonuses while the US economy was struggling because they got the bailout then and they're getting the bailout now, and oh, they're gonna have to like feel a little bit guilty when they're making money and the rest of us are not. And then they're gonna have to talk about their culture wars of rich versus poor and how they're being persecuted for having so much money. Gosh, it's gotta be terrible for them. Next up, the wealthy class that owns everything in the United States, specifically the top 1% or the top 10% or the top 1/10%. You just choose which class you want to hate on. I'm not hating on them, I'm just saying I feel so bad that they've lost so much money. That's right, they've been investing in the stock market and their plans of making sure that American wages don't go up has been working, and it's been good. It's been helping them make their bottom line get a little bit higher and higher and higher in these corporations. And because of that, we've seen unprecedented growth in the US stock market until it, again, went off a cliff. So like now they're only gonna be able to afford like 2 boats instead of 4 boats, and they might have to think about getting a 3rd house. Gosh, that must stink. Oh, and gotta feel bad for the politicians. I mean, think about how terrible it must be to be, let's start with the Republicans and the Libertarians. Now, they've got to pretend that they're all socialists by giving money out to everyone just to make sure they can try to win the election. Man, that must really be some cognitive dissonance after they've told Obama and Hillary and Bernie Sanders that they're all socialists who just want to give away everything for free, and now, where's my $1,200 paycheck? Not to mention the corporate socialism where they basically bail out companies every time they screw up like this. So yeah, it must just be terrible to be a Republican who is in the pockets of those big corporations and they're gonna get good cushy jobs afterwards. Must stink to be them. Hey, and next, don't forget about the Democrats. It's gonna be terrible for them because basically what's happened here is God has given them this gift. Like how terrible the current administration has been with this virus response. They should pretty much win, and yet they'll still probably find a way to lose. So you gotta feel bad for the Democrats as well. Religious leaders, I think I did this one out of order, they should be higher up. But religious leaders who have been continuing to bring people to their churches to make sure that they are filled with the Spirit of God and filled with COVID-19. But hey, sometimes you just gotta keep bringing people in and spread the gospel to make sure that everyone is saved, or everyone becomes a vector for a virus that then goes out into the community. So I feel so bad for you because you're going to jail. No, but seriously, all the people that led a service like that should probably go to jail. Or at least pay a huge fine. Don't you feel bad that all these megachurch leaders are gonna be going to jail for praying? on innocent people who just want to be saved and are told wrong information about viruses and how they spread? Don't you feel bad about megachurch leaders exploiting people like that for money? Feel bad. The middle class. What is Alex gonna say terrible about the middle class, since pretty much most of his friends are middle class and so is most of America? The thing about the middle class is this. There's a large portion of the middle class that voted against helping out people who are less fortunate than them. That means voting for politicians who are in favor of getting rid of food stamps, or even family planning institutions that aren't just for abortions, they're actually for very important, affordable, or free, life-saving female, what do you call it? Health stuff. And why do I feel bad for them? Because there's a lot of middle-class people that are now gonna be falling into that lower-class category and needing food stamps and free healthcare and free checkups at some of these clinics, and they just voted to get rid of a lot of that. So yeah, good job, middle class. Next up, I feel bad for young people, because they can't drink as much anymore. It's gotta be something else. Oh yeah, I remember the 2008-2009 housing crisis that led to a lack of jobs for people in my graduating class who then fell behind their college loan payments and had to get jobs that kind of kept them stuck in a cycle of debt. Seriously, the class that's graduating this year is gonna be in so much debt. They deserve to go drinking or drink by themselves in their house for the next year. I feel bad for old Americans because they're dying. This is getting dark really fast. But here's the thing, old Americans aren't exactly free from blame either. Remember how most old Americans are actually voting against politicians that are offering healthcare for all? Because, you know, they get healthcare for all through Medicare, but, young people, they need to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Well, wouldn't it be great if America had nationalized medicine right now? Because if that were the case, people wouldn't be afraid to go get tested for COVID-19 and then fear losing all their money because they had to be hospitalized, and then they'd go into debt. So instead they just stay home and potentially pass it on to more people, which eventually passes it on to old people, which causes the old people to die. See, what I'm saying is because our society doesn't give healthcare to people as a right, it's helping spread the disease that's killing more old people. And unfortunately, it's old people that helped vote against that right. I feel bad for small business owners because what happens in an economic boom, it starts about right here, and as everyone makes more and more money, near the end of the economic boom, the middle class has enough money to start a business. The problem is it's at the end of the boom, and when most people start the business right here, right before the economy collapses, they lose all their money and it ends up in the cycle of poverty, as we always do. So yeah, I feel terrible for people who are running their own businesses and are soon going to lose their entire life savings over it. I feel bad for Asian Americans because people are literally blaming them for the entire pandemic. First of all, it possibly started in one city in China where most Asian Americans have never been to, and many have probably never heard of, well, at least until the crisis happened. All of a sudden, all Asians are gonna face some serious racism in the US. I mean, it's not like every time a white person does something, we blame every white person for what happened. Like, no one's ever come up to me and said, hey, Alex, thanks for all the gun violence, white nationalism, the KKK, and Hitler, because they're all white, so you did it too. But somehow, people find it acceptable to spit on or hit and attack Asian Americans, or any Asians, non-American Asians. Just stop, what are you doing? I feel bad for babies because they are literally entering a world where they have no choice over all the terrible things that are gonna be happening to them, whether it's global pandemics or whether it's global warming, and they'll never know what it's like for wearing a mask in public to be weird. It will forever be normal now. I feel bad for people who are gonna suffer from domestic violence because they're stuck at home with their abusers. I feel bad for the doctors and nurses, many of whom are my friends because I studied biology in college. They're going to the front lines of a battle that they are not prepared for, and they haven't been given the proper protective equipment that they need by the federal government, and yet they're still going in there and saving lives. I feel bad for the American teachers and grocery store workers and janitors who are essential during this time, and as soon as this pandemic ends, we're gonna forget how important they are and not give them raises or pay them a living wage. And of course, I feel bad for the poor, the needy, the underserved, the underrepresented, because they're the communities that are gonna suffer the most and probably have the least access to healthcare. Yeah. I feel bad for every American out there. I hope you're doing well. April Fools! I don't feel bad for every American. Screw the wealthy people who have been running companies that have been destroying the environment and underpaying American workers who have been working 1, 2, 3 jobs at a time to help feed their families. Honestly, they can all go to hell, especially if they don't use their money for good in this situation. But a shout out to all the good billionaires out there, like Bill Gates and Elon Musk, who are trying to do something. Sorry it's a little bit darker than normal, but I wanted to talk about something important. At some point, we probably all did something that played a role in the spread of the disease, or at least in setting up a terrible system that the US is in right now that's gonna cause a lot more deaths than was necessary. After this pandemic is over, we've got some real issues to work on. Whether it's how much we pay our teachers, or our janitors, or our grocery store workers, or whether it's how we vote for politicians who will potentially destroy our healthcare system. All the little things that we do now will affect us the next time a global crisis like this happens. I mean, like, how much more of a reality check do you need at this point? I really am worried about you Americans out there. Stay safe, wash your hands, don't get drunk at the clubs, and for God's sake, stop going to church with 1,000 people at a time. Seriously. Is that a pun, for God's sake? Yeah, I think I nailed it. Oh yeah, that was reality check. As real as it gets. Goodbye, Haseo.